All right, well, thank you guys for making the trek over to Minneapolis. I appreciate you being here. We are here today to really highlight another example of Mark Dayton's actions that are causing real problems, real pain for everyday middle-class Minnesotans. And to share her story this morning is Jennifer Salisbury, who's one of the owners of Mack Engineering. So Jennifer, why don't you come up and talk?
Thanks, Jeff. Well, again, welcome. I appreciate all of you coming out this morning. Like Jeff said, my name is Jennifer Salisbury, and I'm one of the owners of Mack Engineering. We're a woman-run contract manufacturer. We manufacture precision machine component parts for OEMs that do hydraulic valve components, linear motion control, temperature sensing, you name it. It's all over the place. We've been in business since 1942. We were founded by my grandfather. He started out as a vaudeville dancer and then decided he wanted to be an engineer. So I don't know, I guess that's how it works in our family. But so here I am today. And I really want to start out by saying I'm not a political person. Politics, this kind of stuff is not my deal. But what I am is a wife, a mother of 2 small children, and an employer of 28 people that are critical to our business and to manufacturing. And so I most definitely can't answer questions or speak to any of the politics of the Affordable Care Act, and with it being a 7-foot tall stack of documents, I don't know who can. I don't know if you can, but what I can speak to is the impact that the current situation has had on our employees starting in December. It's not a big shock that the Affordable Care Act got off to kind of a rocky start. And Obama realized that, and at that time decided to extend a waiver to small businesses, to governors, to sign a waiver for small businesses to extend having to comply with the Affordable Care Act until October of 2016, which would then push it out to 2017, which would pretty much allow us 2 more years of letting the ACA sort itself out a little bit. Unfortunately, well, a lot of businesses wrote letters to Dayton imploring him to sign this document. It was important to us to be able to kind of figure out what we were going to do, to have the ACA figure out what it was going to do. And unfortunately, Dayton was not willing to sign this waiver. He was one of the first of the states that didn't sign it. There were 39 states that did sign it, and we were one that did not. So what that means to us is beginning December 1st, our company will be receiving a 34% increase in our premium. To me and my family of 4, that's a $4,000 increase, which is a very nice car payment. You know, I mean, I know a lot of us don't just go out and decide one day we're going to buy a really nice car and have a $333 car payment on it. It's a big decision you make. And so this is one that's kind of being passed on to us without us being able to make that decision. Running this business is important to us, and our employees are important to us. So we'll obviously make it work. We'll figure it out. We'll do what we can, and to continue to be a strong business. But again, we're concerned about what we're going to do to protect our employees. I'm not alone in this. I was at a meeting of my peers earlier this week, and the business owner to the left of me is having a 26% increase. The business owner to the right of me had a 34% increase. And that's 3 of 3 right there. So this is impacting businesses. This is impacting people. This isn't small potatoes. This isn't something that you know, just a few of us are experiencing. You know, more things have come to light this week as well with the withdrawal of with preferred ones. So there's a lot of people that are being affected, and I just really felt it was important that people understood where we were coming from, what we were going to be experiencing, and what these businesses are now going to have to deal with in being creative and ensuring that we're continuing to not only protect our employees, but to protect small businesses and keep manufacturing and businesses strong in our state. So I thank you again for all coming out, and I will turn it back over now to...
Thank you, Jennifer. And you know, we had in the legislature discussed this, debated this, warned about this, were warned about this, of what would happen as we roll through healthcare reform in Minnesota with federalization of healthcare. That is due to direct decisions made by Mark Dayton and the Democrat-controlled legislature. And Minnesota, many of us fought very hard because Minnesota stands the most to lose of any state in the country. We insure more people at a lower cost with higher quality than any other state in the country. We argued that we should have been the last state in the country to enter into this, not the first. But Mark Dayton, after being elected, his first role was to move forward into Obamacare, his first act as governor, and ever since has had an ideological fervor for implementing Obamacare in Minnesota faster than any other state. So it has been a race to be the first state in rather than the last state in, as I believe we should be. Because, as I say, we have the most to lose. And as you look at the map, we see that we are once again an island in Minnesota, and we are not having the protections from Obamacare that Obama himself offered to governors that have been taken up by all of these green states that Jeff is going to talk about in a minute. When we look at when we're implementing this in the state of Minnesota, many of us warned about what would happen to employers like Jennifer and their employees. These are with this week with the collapse of MNsure, we're now seeing this also affecting small employers, 2 to 50 employees, which is what we see here at Mack Engineering. And we're seeing rate increases that are hitting these folks today. We're not going to have to wait until after October. The Commerce Department has already approved these rate increases, which are staggering and which could threaten jobs, threaten businesses, and threaten the health care of thousands of Minnesotans across the state. And they're already seeing it. Jennifer is not having to wait. She already knows what her sticker shock is going to be. The other thing that I think is important for people to understand is that we had the ability to delay the implementation of this, which Governor Dayton chose not to do. But we also had protections in the state of Minnesota of how much the big insurance companies could raise the rates. We were protected because those rate increases were capped. The legislature passed a bill in the last year that removed those caps on rate increases. So Jennifer has now had a double whammy of number one, being in a state that didn't delay the implementation, and number two, removed the very protections from the big insurance companies that is now being visited upon small businesses across the state of Minnesota. So that double whammy is really hitting mom and pop small businesses across the state of Minnesota, and in greater Minnesota even harder. And so I think Jeff is going to talk a little bit more about that. And I also want to thank Jennifer for allowing us to come in and visit this great small company, ones just like it all across the state. Jeff?
Thank you, Matt, and thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate you stepping up and telling your story. I know that's not an easy thing to do. I think this is really just another example of Mark Dayton taking actions, or in this case not taking actions, that really hurt everyday middle-class Minnesotans, small business people, entrepreneurs, and their employees. Even President Obama saw this fundamental flaw in his Obamacare law, and he gave to governors the opportunity to help small businesses like Mack Engineering. And I think we had the CMS regulations that actually granted the opportunity for governors to do this. 39 governors, as you see from this map, 39 governors said yes. Democrats and Republicans. Mark Dayton said no. He wouldn't stand up for the Mack Engineerings of Minnesota. And while Mack Engineering's premiums have gone up and will go up by a huge amount, if you look in greater Minnesota, there are many cases where it's even worse because of this. So Mark Dayton, as I've said before, is causing real problems. He's causing real pain to real Minnesotans, and I think it's time for a change. So with that, we are happy to take any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, I understand that 75% of the businesses in the state of Minnesota are compliant already with the Affordable Care Act. And my memory's fuzzy on this, but as I recall, the governor did not sign the waiver because this would penalize most of the businesses in Minnesota who are compliant. So what wouldn't this, if he signs that waiver, wouldn't it hurt most of the businesses in Minnesota?
Well, it sounds like the excuse he's using is, I didn't sign the waiver when I could, and now it's too late. If he had signed the waiver when the other governors did, when he had the opportunity, he wouldn't have that excuse of, well, this is going to hurt the people that are already in it. And my preference, and certainly what I would have done as governor, is sign the waiver the minute I had that opportunity.
So should he sign it now?
I think he should, yes.
And penalize most of the businesses in the state?
I'm not sure he's penalizing them, but what he's doing is he's allowing all small businesses to have better rates. And I don't know, honestly, I'm not sure what would happen with the ones that have already moved forward, if there's any way to allow them to actually
opt
fall
out
under
or-
the waiver.
Yeah, I
If
think
there is,
the rates would go up 10 to 15% according to the Commerce Department.
Okay, yeah,
And
well.
and I don't have any of this info, but this is what I recall.
And, I mean, the unfortunate part is, we didn't take advantage of this. Mark Dayton didn't take advantage of this when he had the opportunity to do it, and now a lot of businesses and a lot of employees especially are gonna have some sticker shock.
Didn't he do this, though, at the request of the HMOs and some businesses who said, don't do this because it's going to create a lot of problems for them?
I don't know his reasoning behind it, but he didn't do it and he should have.
Commissioner,
So you don't know the reasoning behind why he made his decision, but
No,
you're
I don't know.
criticism
I don't know who
for?
told him not to.
Remind us of your plan to unwind or replace or do something about just the broader law that you take an aim at.
Minsure,
Yeah.
you mean? Number one, demand a waiver from the government, whether it's a full waiver or a partial waiver. And I happen to believe that there's a real opportunity to do that, especially after this next election. I think we'll see a different Washington, D.C., different capital after this election, and part of that will be because of the failures of Obamacare. If we can't accomplish that, and I still believe that we could, but if we can't accomplish that, then Plan B is to do everything you can to change Minsure. And I would start by firing the board and the top staff. They have been a failure. It's been an unmitigated disaster since day one, and 2 days ago, we saw the biggest bomb yet dropped on Minnesotans who are trying to use Minsure, going through that nightmare. I would do whatever I can to change some of the rulemaking procedures that allow the Minsure board to make decisions without as much public input as many agencies have to do. I would encourage strongly the board members to allow more competition within Minsure, and I would try to remove as many barriers outside of Minsure for the private sector to actually compete.
just so we're clear, unwinding it, would your goal be to get rid of Minsure, to abolish it?
If the other option is just to push everybody to the federal exchange, no, because I don't think that solves the problem. You just put everybody through the same thing again and they're in about the same spot. I would love to get in a spot where we're not required to have an exchange anymore, a government exchange anymore. But that's federal law, and so I'll certainly be advocating for that as governor.
And just so we're clear, then you would keep Minsure and change it, but you're going to keep the system the way it is. Your goal would not be to repeal Obamacare, abolish Minsure.
Well, I would love a goal of repealing Obamacare, but I don't get to do that as governor. So as long as we have Obamacare and we are required to either have an exchange or have our people on the federal exchange, we have Minsure, and I don't see the point in forcing everybody to the federal exchange. So let's try to make it at least a little more competitive.
Step one then would be to fire the board and the top staff and reappoint.
Correct.
Aren't the board's terms staggered?
Yeah, I think there's some question about whether I could do them all at once or not, but eventually we certainly could get to a full replacement.
Do you believe that with the numbers that we've been seeing over the last couple of days, the first one has come out, we see different numbers now for the private insurance. Do you believe that Minsure is willfully misleading Minnesota on numbers, on how it's going?
I don't know if it's willfully doing it, but they're incompetent. I don't know if there's any other word for it. If they don't even know what percentage that preferred one had, and all of the numbers had said 59%, and now all of a sudden they're saying, well, it might not be that high. I don't know if it's willful or not, but they clearly don't know what they're doing.
This sounds very, how much would your rates have increased if the waiver would have gone into effect?
Just how much over here.
Because your rates were going to increase no matter what, right?
I don't know. Probably, potentially 5%. 5 to
I'm sorry, I
8%.
didn't hear that, how much?
Potentially 5 to 8%. You know, I don't know, but with the cap that we used to have, I knew they couldn't be more than 15%. We don't have the cap anymore. And with these rate changes, 34%. I mean, that's never happened. 34% is huge. So regardless of how much it would have been, it would not have been 34%, and it would not have been over 15%.
What difficulties have you had? Obviously, you've looked at this pretty closely. Why have you not been compliant? Why have you not moved more quickly to join the rest of the businesses in the state with the Affordable Care Act? Am I understanding this correctly?
Well, we had the opportunity to move our plan year to December 1st, which a majority of businesses, and that's why I don't understand how 75% is already compliant, because everybody I've talked to moved their plan year to December 1st, so that just elongated it another 12 months, prevented us from having to deal with this 34% last year. You know, the other thing too is our insurance plan does comply. I mean, I had 2 babies in the last 4 years. I have had full maternal care coverage. My babies have preventive medicine coverage. I mean, there's nothing in our plan besides pre-existing conditions that doesn't comply with the Affordable Care Act. So that's what I don't understand is why we have to, you know, and again, I'm not political. I may be saying something completely wrong, but I do know that our insurance plan is rich. It does support us. There's nothing that our plan now doesn't cover that the Affordable Care Act would. We have children's dental. We have all of that. So technically speaking,
care and pre-existing conditions and
we have preventive care, just not pre-existing conditions. That's the only thing that is new with any plan.
Is that the only change that it would bring is pre-existing condition for your employees?
For our plan, yeah.
Does your company's plan swing based on any major health matter involving an employee? Like if an employee had a severe cancer or anything of that nature, would your plan rate spike the next year?
We're a small group, so it can affect that.
Did you have anything in the last year that would have qualified?
No. And like I said, we're a small group, so there are effects of that. But the other thing with the Affordable Care Act is it's moving all of us, and again, forgive me if I'm misspeaking slightly, but my understanding of it is it's moving all of us basically to the same level to start. So if you have a healthy group, you go down. If you have an unhealthy group, you go up. So there's no incentive for maintaining a healthy group anymore. You know, I've had other business owners, I have a person that's a business owner of 150 people that stated that fact. You know, what's the incentive to continue to have a healthy group and have wellness programs and things like that when we all have to get kicked back down to the same starting place?
Are any of your employees denied coverage for illnesses?
No.
Have they ever been?
No.
And is that part of the policy they can be?
No.
So they must be accepted, except for pre-existing conditions, for example.
Right. I mean, if they came on
Is
to
pregnancy
our plan,
one?
a pre-existing condition.
Pregnancy, is that a pre-existing condition?
No.
You had 2 babies and ran a company.
I did. Yep. I have 2 children under 4 right now, so I'm a little insane.
Any other questions? Or?
Do your employees, they contribute to the health plan?
They do.
Okay, what percentage?
We do 80% of employee and 50% of family.
The employer, your employer does.
Correct.
So I don't think I understood that. So what do they contribute? What's the percentage?
20%, 50%.
20% is their percentage? Co-pays and?
We have 2 plans. We have a regular plan and we have a high deductible HSA. Majority of us are on the HSA.
Or on the high deductible. What is that deductible?
$3,000 for an individual, 6 for a family.
I'm sorry, 6 for
Family.
6 for family.
And just so I'm clear, I mean, you said you're not political, but are you going to vote based on this issue this year?
I'm going to vote on a lot of issues. My world is not just this, but I feel strongly about people hearing the information.
So is Mr. Johnson for your vote?
So I'm still working on an endorsement here.
I mean, you're standing next to him, and this is obviously making this issue a prominent issue in his campaign in the final 6 weeks. Has he swayed you to his side?
Like I said, we don't even talk about in our own family who we vote for, so I'm certainly not going to tell the community who I'm going to vote for, but I think that people need to hear the facts, and this is a fact that I'm reporting.
The So HSA, high deductible, so what is your monthly premium? What had it been? Can you tell us that?
I don't have the numbers in front of me as far as how it all pans out per month and what the increase is, but the average would have been a $4,000. For me, it would have been a $4,000 increase per year, so a $300 increase a month.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, Commissioner, can we ask you about a
Sure.
couple more health things? When you were in the legislature, did you vote to cut funds for people getting on min care during the budget of 2003, 2004?
I don't recall. I'd have to look at that.
You voted for the first monthly budget, right?
Likely, yes. I'd have to go back and look.
I didn't remember, what, 38,000 folks who were moved off because eligibility was.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look to be certain. Any other questions?
Just to follow up
Go
on
ahead.
Pat's point, the 75%, if you look at Dayton's own letter in that, he notes that 72,000 Minnesotans whose employers did not yet change to the ACA compliant plan are facing massive rate shocks like you're seeing. So you're going to see the people like Jennifer who did absolutely nothing wrong, who played by the rules, are being hit with a double whammy right now across the state. I talked to an employer in western Minnesota who's seen a 100% rate increase. And they're not the bad guys. They didn't do anything wrong. They're playing by the rules. But they're facing losing their plans and potentially losing their doctors and massive
And
increases.
just so we're clear, are you talking about the ones who are already compliant are going to get these massive rate hikes?
The
100%?
the 2 to 50 employees are looking at massive increases, and I think there was just a study that came out, I believe, yesterday that showed what those increases are across the state of Minnesota, and they're staggering. This is not unusual at 30%. In fact, it's probably a little low.
But is that for 100% of the businesses or the 25% who are not compliant?
That's for the 72,000 people in that group are facing these massive rate shocks.
Despite, no matter what they've done previously, they are facing these
Yeah,
rate hikes?
we can
Is that
show
what
you
you're
the
saying?
numbers on how that's
That's not my
affecting this.
understanding, but if that's what you're saying, that 100%, not this, there's 75% of the companies that are compliant. Are you saying they are the ones who are going to get this massive rate hike?
Well, no, the folks who are looking at this are like this company are not the bad guys, and I think that that's really what is communicated in the letter, that these are small companies across the state of Minnesota that are going to have to face tough choices about laying people off, closing their doors, or losing their health care. And these are real people on Main Street, Minnesota, that we're going to be hearing from. And it's not just those policies, but it's their families that are affected by this. And those employees and those employers didn't do anything wrong. They're just following the law.
Commissioner, on October 1st-ish, around that time, there's going to be rates announced.
Yes.
What's your expectation? What's going to happen, do you think?
I don't know. The
What's your gut
expectation
feeling?
of people who seem to know more about this than I do is that we may have some significant increases. And we're going to have to wait a couple weeks to find
And what
that
does
out.
that say to you, if that's true?
Well, it depends upon how big the increases are, but if they're large increases, it says that what we were promised about MNsure and Obamacare isn't true, which was that not only would more people be covered, but that premiums would drop, and it doesn't appear that that's going to happen.
What's your understanding of whether remaining plans in MNsure could go back and adjust their rate plans based on the deferred one enrollment, or are they locked in already to whatever they submitted to Congress?
Well, I think when 60% of the MNsure market pulls out with one carrier, and that carrier is the low bidder, you can't look at that and say that it's anything other than a catastrophic collapse of MNsure. I think going forward, that pool is destabilized to the point where Preferred One had to make a decision. They said that this is not structurally sound. We cannot renew. 60% of that market and the low bidder says that it's not structurally sound. It's a collapse. And I think that we have to face the music on that moving forward with the remaining bidders within that pool. I don't know how they are going to react. But more importantly, if you are an individual uninsured, how are you going to react to that, those rate increases? And again, we don't know what those are going to be. But we will find out after October, as Governor Dayton has said that those will come out. Interestingly, for small business, Governor Dayton's consultant said that we would have tens of thousands of small businesses signing up for MNsure, when in fact we've got fewer than 1,000 that have signed up. So that the predictions that he made about MNsure, none of which have come true, and it has been this week, and in fact, we've seen the collapse of MNsure.
But presumably, these are big enough company decisions that they would have had to submit some plan rate information to Commerce already, if they are in fact going to come out in a couple weeks' time. Are you saying that Commerce should invite them to submit amended plans to them?
I think that would be a question for Mr. Lights at
Well,
MNsure.
Commissioner, what do you think about that?
I think I'd be absolutely willing to take a look at that. I just don't know how it would work, but I'd be open to it.
Reopening and letting people recalculate after preferred one.
If it's possible.
Governor Dayton says this is the marketplace at work. This is a company that came in, that made a calculation, a gamble that they could make money on this, and maybe they did. The governor says they captured a market share, and then made the financial decision to pull out. What do you say to that?
He doesn't understand what a marketplace is. This is not the marketplace. This is a government-run exchange. And I think most people believe that there was probably some pressure on Preferred One to come in with numbers that maybe were lower than what should have been realistic, and they're realizing that now. But to argue that a government-run insurance exchange is the marketplace is just wrong. That shows a basic misunderstanding of how marketplaces work. Any other? I will add one other thing. I saw a clip yesterday of the MNsure board meeting, and the chair kind of rolling his eyes about this and saying this was a hiccup and that people are making a big deal out of it, and it really isn't. And I think that shows that some people are completely out of touch with how normal people live, because the loss of Preferred One is likely going to send rates skyrocketing, and that has a tremendous effect on everyday normal people in the state of Minnesota, and to suggest that it's a hiccup and not even worth covering is really out of touch. All right, thank you so much.